The massive crystal chamber filled with beings from across the galaxy. Some looked like walking trees, others like living clouds of gas. A few had shells that sparkled like diamonds. They all came to the Galactic Council on Nexus Prime for one reason: to make decisions that would affect billions of worlds. At the center of the chamber stood three tall, pale creatures with glowing eyes. Their skin looked almost transparent, showing blue veins underneath. These were the Vorthak, the oldest race in the galaxy. For millions of years, they had told the future. Their predictions always came true. Elder Cathara stepped forward. Her voice echoed through the chamber like wind through empty caves. "Council members, we bring a warning that will change everything." Admiral Taman of the Helix Federation laughed. His crystal body made sharp sounds as he moved. "Another prophecy. Let me guess. Someone will sneeze and destroy a planet?" Other council members joined his laughter. The atmospheric collective, beings made of living gas, swirled in amusement. The tree folk of Verdania rustled their leaves in what passed for chuckling among their kind. Cathara raised her hand, and the chamber fell silent. "There is a young species on the third planet of a yellow star. They call themselves humans. They will bring the Great Darkening." "The Great Darkening?" Admiral Taman's crystal form flashed with mockery. "Sounds scary. What exactly will these humans do? Blow out all the stars?" "They will change the very fabric of space itself," Kithra said, quietly. "When they rise, the heavens will turn black. Reality will bend. What was solid will become liquid. What was separate will become one." Commander Jiho, another Helix officer, pulled up a holographic display. It showed a blue and green planet orbiting a medium-sized star. "This planet? These creatures barely have space travel. They still fight wars with chemical explosives. Half their planet doesn't even have clean water." The display zoomed in to show images of Earth, cities full of concrete and metal, vehicles that moved on wheels, primitive rockets that could barely reach their own moon. "Look at them," Jiho continued. "They're divided into hundreds of small groups. They fight each other over pieces of dirt and different beliefs. They poison their own air and water. How could such primitive beings threaten anyone?" A representative from the Void Swimmers, creatures that lived in the empty space between stars, spoke up. "Our sensors show they've only just discovered faster-than-light travel. Their ships are crude. Their weapons are basic. They're at least 1,000 years behind the youngest council member." Cathara's glowing eyes grew brighter. "You measure them by technology. You measure them by unity. You measure them by wisdom. These measurements mean nothing." "Then what should we measure them by?" asked the representative from the Silicon Empire, a race of living computers. "Measure them by what they do when everything is lost," Cathara replied. "Measure them by how they fight when there is no hope. Measure them by what they become when their children are threatened." The chamber erupted in more laughter. Admiral Taman's crystal body rang like a bell as he shook with amusement. "Every species protects their young. That's basic biology, not some cosmic threat." "Not like this," Cathara whispered, but her words were lost in the noise. The vote was quick and unanimous. The Galactic Council would ignore the Vorthak warning. The humans were too primitive to matter. If they ever became a problem, any single council fleet could handle them easily. As the council members filed out, chatting about more important matters, Cathara remained in the center of the chamber. Her two companions, Seers Zelan and Norvak, stood beside her. "They will not listen," Zelan said sadly. "They never do," Cathara replied. "Not until it's too late." "Should we warn the humans directly?" Norvak asked. Cathara shook her head. "The prophecy must unfold naturally. We can only watch and hope that when the darkness comes, it brings dawn with it." Meanwhile, on the small blue planet that had caused so much dismissive laughter, Dr. Una Park worked late in her laboratory in Seoul. She had been studying quantum field manipulation for years, trying to find new sources of clean energy. Tonight felt different. Tonight, she was close to something big. Her computer screen showed dancing patterns of energy. Quantum fields that normally existed for tiny fractions of a second were holding steady. The implications were staggering. If she could control these fields, humanity could have unlimited power. They could heal the environment. They could reach the stars. Yuna rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the clock. It was past midnight. She should go home to her small apartment, feed her cat and get some sleep, but the patterns on her screen were too beautiful, too promising. She made one small adjustment to the field generator. The patterns shifted. For just a moment, space itself seemed to bend around the machine. A coffee cup on her desk lifted into the air without anyone touching it. Yuna stared in amazement. She had just manipulated gravity itself. Without knowing it, she had taken the first step toward fulfilling an ancient prophecy. In the depths of space, far from both Earth and Nexus Prime, something stirred. The quantum disturbance from Yuna's experiment sent ripples through dimensions that most beings couldn't even imagine. In the dark spaces between galaxies, ancient things that fed on energy began to take notice. The Vorthak seers felt it too. A tiny change in the cosmic web, like a single wrong note in a vast symphony. Cathara closed her glowing eyes and saw flashes of the future. Ships burning in the void, crystals cracking, stars going dark. And through it all, creatures with pink skin and determined eyes fighting against impossible odds. "It has begun," she whispered to her companions. Back on Earth, Yuna, Park saved her data and finally headed home. She had no idea that her breakthrough would change everything. She didn't know that races millions of years old had just dismissed her species as harmless. She couldn't imagine that her simple experiment had started a chain of events that would shake the galaxy to its core. As she walked through the quiet streets of Seoul, Yuna looked up at the stars. They seemed peaceful tonight, twinkling in the clear winter sky. She wondered what was out there among those distant lights. Were there other civilizations, other scientists working late in their laboratories trying to unlock the secrets of the universe? If she had known about the Galactic Council, she might have been disappointed by their laughter. If she had seen the contempt in Admiral Taman's crystal eyes, she might have been angry. But she didn't know, and maybe that was for the best. Sometimes, the universe needs heroes who don't know they're heroes. Sometimes the greatest strength comes from not knowing how outmatched you are. Sometimes the most dangerous species is the one that everyone underestimates. The warning had been given. The council had laughed. The first quantum field had been bent by human hands. The prophecy was in motion. In the cold depths of space, things that should have stayed sleeping began to wake up, and on a small blue planet orbiting an ordinary yellow star, humanity continued its daily life, completely unaware that they had just become the most important species in the galaxy. The great darkening was coming. The heavens would turn black, but first, the aliens would have to meet the humans. 6 months after the Galactic Council's dismissive vote, humanity's first interstellar colony ship drifted through the outer edges of the solar system. The New Horizon was massive, carrying 50,000 colonists toward a new world orbiting Proxima Centauri. Captain Sung-Ho Kim stood on the bridge, watching the stars through the main viewport. "Captain," called out Navigator Haewon Lee, "we're detecting unknown energy signatures approaching from the asteroid belt." Sung-Ho moved to the sensor station. 3 ships appeared on the display, each one 10 times larger than the New Horizon. Their hulls looked like they were made of living crystal, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Open a communication channel," Sung-Ho ordered. "Let's make history." The main screen flickered to life, showing a tall, crystalline being with faceted features that caught and reflected light like a prism. This was Commander Jiho of the Helix Exploration Fleet, though the humans didn't know his name yet. "Unknown vessel," the alien's voice rang like chimes in the wind. "You are in violation of Helix territorial claims. Remove your primitive craft from this system immediately." Sung-Ho blinked in surprise. This wasn't how he had imagined first contact would go. "I'm Captain Sung-Ho Kim of the Earth vessel New Horizon. We come in peace. This is our home system." Commander Jiho's crystal face showed something that might have been amusement. "Your home system? You are barely capable of interstellar travel. This system contains valuable heavy elements. We claim it for the Helix Federation." "Wait," Sung-Ho said, trying to stay calm. "Surely we can discuss this. We've lived in this system for thousands of years. We have colonies on Mars and the Moon. This is our home." Your colonies are irrelevant, Jiho replied coldly. You have 24 hours to evacuate all personnel from this system. Any who remain will be removed by force. The communication cut off. Sung-ho stared at the blank screen in shock. His daughter Minji, who worked as a communications officer on Luna Base, appeared on a smaller screen. Dad, did that really just happen? She asked. Did aliens just tell us to leave our own solar system? Before Sung-ho could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. On Luna Base, 50,000 people lived and worked in humanity's largest off-world colony. It was a symbol of human achievement, a stepping stone to the stars. The Helix. Ships moved toward the moon with casual efficiency. They didn't even bother to target military installations first. To them, Luna Base was just an obstacle to be removed, like clearing rocks from a mining site. Sung-ho watched in horror as crystal ships opened fire on the moon. The base's shields, designed to protect against meteor impacts, lasted less than 30 seconds against alien weapons. Explosions bloomed across the lunar surface like deadly flowers. Minji! Sung-ho shouted into his communicator. Minji, respond! There was only static. In less than 5 minutes, Luna Base was gone. 50,000 people, including Sung-ho's daughter, were dead. The bridge of the New Horizon fell silent except for the soft beeping of instruments. Crew members stared at their screens in shock. First contact had become first massacre. Sir, whispered Haewon Lee, what do we do? Sung-ho felt something cold and hard forming in his chest. It wasn't just grief, though grief was part of it. It wasn't just anger, though anger was there too. It was something deeper, more fundamental. It was the realization that the universe was not the friendly place humans had hoped it would be. Send a message to Earth, he said quietly. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that we are not alone, and we are not welcome. On Earth, the news of Luna Base's destruction spread across the planet in hours. Dr. Yuna Park was in her laboratory when the alert came through. She watched the footage of the alien ships, beautiful and terrible, destroying humanity's first real space colony. Something changed in that moment. The quantum field generator she had been working on for clean energy suddenly looked different to her eyes. The peaceful applications she had planned seemed naive now. If humanity was going to survive in a hostile galaxy, they would need more than clean energy. They would need weapons. Within days, every major government on Earth was calling Dr. Park. Military officials who had never heard of quantum physics suddenly wanted to know everything about her research. The woman who had dreamed of solving humanity's energy problems found herself drafted into creating humanity's first real defense. Engineer Hyun-woo Lee, who had spent his career designing peaceful space vessels, received new orders. The ships he would build now would not carry colonists or scientific equipment. They would carry weapons and armor and the hopes of an entire species. Something remarkable happened in those first weeks after Luna Base. Humanity, which had been divided into hundreds of nations and thousands of factions, suddenly found unity. The sight of their first space colony being casually destroyed by aliens who saw them as insects created a shared purpose that had never existed before. Earth's leaders held emergency meetings. Old enemies sat at the same table. Nations that had been preparing for war with each other began planning for war with something else entirely. Captain Sung-ho Kim brought the New Horizon home to Earth orbit. The colony ship would never reach its destination. Instead, it became the command center for humanity's first space defense force. Sung-ho, the man who had lost his daughter to alien cruelty, became the first admiral of the human fleet. The Helix, meanwhile, continued their mining operations in the outer solar system. To them, the destruction of Luna Base was a minor administrative action. They had removed an obstacle and forgotten about it immediately. The idea that the primitive humans might fight back never occurred to them. Commander Jiho filed his report with routine efficiency. Primitive species evacuated from System 47731. Minor resistance eliminated. Beginning resource extraction as planned. He had no idea that he had just started a war. Dr. Yuna Park worked 18-hour days in her expanded laboratory, now funded by every government on Earth. Her quantum field generator grew larger and more powerful. She discovered that the fields could do more than bend gravity. They could tear holes in space itself. They could turn matter into energy and energy into matter. The applications were staggering and terrifying. Engineer Hyun-woo Lee designed ships, unlike anything humanity had ever built. They were small and fast, built around the principle that humans couldn't match alien technology, so they would have to be smarter. Each ship was unique, modified by its crew to take advantage of human creativity and adaptability. Captain Yoon-ji Cho, a former fighter pilot, tested the first of these new ships. As she flew through Earth's atmosphere, she felt the quantum drive respond to her thoughts as much as her controls. The ship didn't just fly, it danced. "This is different," she reported to Admiral Sung-ho. "It's not like flying a machine. It's like flying is part of you." The first battle came 3 months after Luna Base. A small Helix patrol encountered a group of human ships near Jupiter. The aliens expected to brush aside the primitive vessels as easily as they had destroyed the lunar colony. They were wrong. The human ships moved in ways that violated everything the Helix knew about space combat. They should have maintained formation and engaged at maximum range. Instead, they scattered like a school of fish, regrouped like a flock of birds, and struck like a pack of wolves. Captain Bo-Ram Lee led the attack in her ship, the Luna's Revenge. As Helix energy beams lanced through space, her ship twisted and rolled, following patterns that seemed random but somehow always kept her just ahead of the targeting systems. "They're trying to predict our movements," she reported over the radio. "But they can't predict chaos." The human ships didn't try to match the aliens' firepower. Instead, they used Dr. Park's quantum weapons to create tiny tears in space, redirecting the alien energy beams back at their own ships. One Helix vessel found itself being cut in half by its own weapons. When the battle was over, 2 Helix ships were destroyed, and the third was fleeing back toward the outer system. The human fleet had lost 3 ships, but they had proven something important. They could fight. News of the victory spread across Earth like wildfire. Humanity had struck back against the aliens who had murdered 50,000 innocent people. The species that the Galactic Council had dismissed as harmless primitives had just announced their presence in the galaxy. But this was only the beginning. The Helix would not ignore this insult. They would send more ships, better weapons, stronger forces, and humanity would be ready for them. In her laboratory, Dr. Yuna Park looked at her latest creation, a quantum weapon that could destabilize the bonds between atoms themselves. She thought about her peaceful dreams of clean energy and wondered what she had become. Then she thought about Luna Base and 50,000 dead, and she got back to work. The galaxy was about to learn what humans became when their children were threatened. The war had been going on for 2 years now, and the galaxy was starting to take notice. What had begun as a simple mining dispute in an unimportant star system had grown into something that made military analysts across a dozen species scratch their heads in confusion. Admiral Daewon Park, Dr. Yuna Park's older brother, stood in the command center of Earth's orbital defense station. Around him, holographic displays showed the positions of human and alien fleets across 3 star systems. The war had spread far beyond Earth's solar system now. "Report," he said to his aide, Lieutenant Subin Kang. "The Helix 7th Fleet engaged. Our forces near Alpha Centauri," Subin replied, pulling up tactical data. "Captain Yoon-ji Cho's squadron used what she calls ghost tactics to confuse their targeting systems. The aliens lost 4 heavy cruisers before withdrawing." Daewon nodded grimly. Ghost tactics were something only humans seemed able to pull off. They involved flying in patterns that looked random, but actually followed the pilot's intuition. Alien computers couldn't predict them because they weren't based on logic or mathematics. They were based on human instinct. "Any word from the research division?" Daewon asked. "Dr. Min Seo Jang says she's made another breakthrough," Subin replied. "Something about human neural patterns disrupting alien computer systems. She wants to test it in the field." Dr. Min Seo Jang had been studying captured Helix technology for months. What she discovered was disturbing and encouraging at the same time. Alien computers were incredibly advanced, capable of calculations that would take human machines years to complete. But they had one weakness. They couldn't handle truly random input. Human brains, shaped by millions of years of evolution in a chaotic environment, generated patterns that alien computers couldn't process. When humans interfaced directly with captured alien systems, the computers often crashed or began producing impossible results. It was as if human consciousness itself was a form of chaos that ordered alien minds couldn't comprehend. Captain Yunji Cho tested this theory during a raid on a Helix supply depot. She plugged a human neural interface into the station's main computer and let her mind wander. She thought about her childhood, her fears, her dreams, her grocery list. The alien computer tried to process these random thoughts and promptly suffered what could only be described as a nervous breakdown. Security systems shut down. Life support began playing music instead of circulating air. The gravity generator started creating localized dance floors. "It's like the computer is having a bad dream," Yunji reported as she and her team looted the confused station. Human thoughts are apparently toxic to alien logic. Meanwhile, on the ground, Colonel Bo-Ram Lee was proving that human tactics work just as well on planets as they did in space. Her forces had just liberated a mining colony that the Helix had established on Mars. The aliens had built their base, according to perfect geometric principles. Every angle was precisely calculated. Every corridor followed the most efficient path. Every room was exactly the size needed for its function. It was a masterpiece of logical design. It was also completely helpless against guerrilla warfare. Bo-Ram's soldiers moved through the base like water flowing around rocks. When the aliens expected them to attack the command center, they hit the kitchens. When alien forces moved to protect the armory, the humans were already in the computer core. When the Helix tried to predict human movements using their advanced tactical computers, the humans did something that made no tactical sense but somehow worked anyway. "They fight like their entire species has gone insane," reported Helix Field Commander Vextar to his superiors. "They sacrifice valuable equipment to save worthless personnel. They waste ammunition on targets with no strategic value. They attack when they should retreat, and retreat when they should attack. Our computers cannot model their behavior because their behavior has no logical basis." What Vextar didn't understand was that human behavior did have a logical basis. It just wasn't the kind of logic that alien minds could grasp. Humans had evolved on a world where the climate could change without warning, where predators could attack from any direction, where survival often depended on making quick decisions with incomplete information. Other alien species had evolved on more stable worlds. Their success came from patience, planning, and the gradual accumulation of knowledge over millions of years. They built perfect societies based on perfect logic. Humans built imperfect societies based on adaptation and change. And in a war situation, adaptation was everything. The atmospheric collective, beings of living gas who observed the conflict from their home in Jupiter's clouds, sent a delegation to the Galactic Council. Their representative, a swirling mass of blue and gold vapors, delivered a disturbing report. "The humans are not fighting like any species we have observed," the collective announced. "They appear to be guided by what can only be described as organized chaos. Their tactics should not work, yet they continue to achieve victories against superior forces." "Impossible," declared Admiral Taman, whose crystal form was now marred by stress fractures from months of bad news. "They are primitives, with crude technology. Numbers and logic must prevail eventually." But the numbers were telling a different story. Human forces were not only holding their own against the Helix, they were winning. Not through superior firepower or better technology, but through something the aliens couldn't quantify or counter. Dr. Yuna Park called it the human factor. "We don't think like them," she explained to a gathering of Earth's military leaders. "They've had millions of years to perfect their approach to war. Everything they do is calculated, optimized, logical. But we're not logical creatures. We're survivors." She activated a holographic display showing human brain scans alongside those of captured Helix prisoners. The difference was striking. Alien brain patterns showed perfect organization, like a beautiful crystal formation. Human patterns looked like controlled lightning storms. "They can't predict us because we can't predict ourselves," Yuna continued. "Every human brain is slightly different, shaped by unique experiences and random mutations. Even our computers can't perfectly model human behavior. How can alien computers hope to do better?" In the depths of space, far from the battlefields, where humans and aliens fought, the Vorthak seers watched and worried. Elder Kithara had seen glimpses of this chaos in her prophecies. But the reality was more disturbing than her visions had suggested. "The quantum fields around human space are becoming unstable," reported Seer Xylan. "Their weapons are not just destroying matter. They're tearing holes in the fabric of reality itself." Kithara nodded slowly. She had seen this too. Dr. Yuna, Park's quantum manipulators were evolving beyond their original design. Each battle pushed the technology further, making the weapons more powerful and more dangerous. "They don't realize what they're doing," Kithara said quietly. "They think they're just fighting a war. They don't know they're unraveling the cosmic web." The warning signs were subtle but growing stronger. Space itself was beginning to behave strangely around human battle zones. Light bent in impossible ways. Time flowed at different rates in different areas. Some regions experienced gravity that pushed instead of pulled. And in the darkest reaches of intergalactic space, things that had slept for billions of years began to stir. The quantum disturbances from human weapons were like dinner bells to entities that fed on the energy of stars. Back in human space, the war continued. Captain Chan-Woo Kim, commanding the newest human dreadnought, prepared for what would become known as the Battle of the Crystal Gardens. His ship, the Indomitable, was a testament to human engineering, a vessel that combined alien technology with human creativity to create something that shouldn't have been able to exist. "All stations report ready," called out his tactical officer. "Lieutenant Nari Yoon." "Remember," Chan Wu announced to his crew, "we're not trying to match them shot for shot. We're trying to confuse them until they defeat themselves." It was a uniquely human approach to warfare. Instead of meeting force with force, they would meet order with chaos, logic with intuition, perfection with improvisation. The battle that followed would be studied by military historians for generations. Not because of its scale or its strategic importance, but because it perfectly demonstrated the fundamental difference between human and alien approaches to conflict. The Helix fleet moved in perfect formation, their tactics flawless according to every principle of galactic warfare. They should have crushed the smaller human force easily. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to be making up the rules as they went along. Human ships danced between their formations like leaves in a hurricane. Human tactics shifted and changed faster than alien computers could process. And when the battle was over, it was the Helix who retreated, leaving behind the wreckage of a dozen ships and their reputation for invincibility. The galaxy was beginning to realize that the humans were not going away. The species that the Galactic Council had dismissed as harmless primitives was reshaping the balance of power through pure, chaotic determination. But victory came with a price. Each battle pushed human technology further into dangerous territory. Each quantum weapon brought reality closer to the breaking point. The Great Darkening was coming, just as the Vorthak had predicted. The Questi. The Galactic Council chamber on Nexus Prime had never seen such chaos. Representatives from dozens of species shouted over each other while holographic displays showed the impossible. Human fleets deep in Helix territory, winning battles they should have lost, using weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Admiral Taman's crystal form was covered in stress fractures, each one representing another defeat at human hands. "This is unacceptable," he declared, his voice ringing like a cracked bell. "A primitive species cannot be allowed to humiliate the greatest military force in the galaxy." The representative from the Void Swimmers drifted closer to the central platform. "Perhaps it's time to admit that these humans are not as primitive as we believed. Their quantum manipulation technology is beyond anything we've seen." "Technology? Stolen from us!" Taman protested. "They're using captured Helix equipment against us." "No," said the Silicon Empire's delegate, its robotic voice emotionless. "Our analysis indicates their quantum weapons are of original design. They've developed capabilities that we never achieved." On the viewing screen, footage played from the recent Battle of Crystallis Prime, the Helix Federation's most important fortress world. General Wu Jin Ryu had led a force of just 50 human ships against a fortified planet defended by thousands of Helix vessels. The battle should have been a massacre. Instead, it became a legend. The humans didn't attack the planet's defenses directly. They attacked the planet itself, using quantum manipulators to turn the crystal formations that made up the world's crust into weapons. The very foundations of Crystallis Prime became unstable, creating earthquakes that shattered the carefully constructed defensive positions. But that wasn't the most disturbing part. As human soldiers fought inside the crystal caverns that honeycomb the planet, something impossible happened. The crystals began to resonate with human brainwaves, amplifying their thoughts and emotions until the entire planet seemed to pulse with human consciousness. Helix defenders found themselves fighting not just human soldiers, but the planet itself. Corridors that should have led to safety instead guided them into traps. Crystal formations that should have provided cover instead became transparent, exposing them to human weapons. The very architecture of their world turned against them. "It's as if the humans infected our planet with their chaos," reported Helix Ground Commander Teclon before his final transmission went silent. In the council chamber, Elder Cathara of the Vorthax stood to speak. Her voice cut through the arguments like a knife through silk. "You still don't understand what you're facing." "Enlighten us," Admiral Taman said sarcastically. "You see this as a war between species," Cathara replied. "But this is bigger than that. The humans aren't just fighting you. They're changing the fundamental nature of reality around them. Every battle makes space itself more unstable. Every quantum weapon brings us closer to something that cannot be undone." She gestured to a holographic display showing the regions where major battles had taken place. In each area, space itself was distorted. Stars flickered strangely. Planets orbited in patterns that defied physics. Ships reported navigation instruments going haywire as they passed through these zones. "These distortions are growing," Cathara continued. "They're spreading, and they're attracting attention from things that should remain sleeping." "What things?" demanded the Atmospheric Collective's representative. But before Cathara could answer, Admiral Taman made an announcement that would change everything. "The Helix Federation hereby activates the Star Eater." The chamber fell silent. Even species that had never heard of the Star Eater could sense the importance of the moment from the way others reacted. The few who knew what it was looked horrified. "You can't be serious," whispered the treefolk delegate. "That weapon was buried for a reason." "It's the only way to end this madness," Taman declared. "We'll use it against the human homeworld. One demonstration of true power will bring them to their senses." Cathara's glowing eyes blazed with alarm. "You fool! The Star Eater isn't just a weapon, it's a key. You have no idea what you're about to unleash." But Taman was beyond listening to prophecies and warnings. 3 years of humiliating defeats had pushed him past the point of rational thought. The crystal formations that made up his body pulsed with aggressive energy. "The decision is made," he announced. "Within one rotation, the human threat will be eliminated." Deep in the most secret vaults of the Helix homeworld, ancient machinery began to wake up. The Star Eater had been built millions of years ago by a previous generation of Helix, then buried and forgotten when its creators realized what they had made. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a harvester. It consumed the energy of entire star systems, converting matter into a form of power that existed beyond normal space-time. The energy didn't disappear, it was fed somewhere else, to something that waited in the dark spaces between galaxies. Dr. Una Park felt the disturbance the moment the Star Eater activated. In her laboratory on Earth, her quantum field detectors began screaming warnings. Impossible energy readings flooded her instruments. "Something's wrong," she announced to her research team. "Something big just woke up in Helix space, and it's affecting the quantum foam across light years." Her brother, Admiral Daewon Park, was in a strategy meeting when the alert came through. Human spy networks in alien space had detected massive energy buildups around the Helix core worlds. Whatever they were building, it was bigger than anything seen before. "How long until it's operational?" Daewon asked his intelligence officer. "Unknown, sir. But the energy signature suggests it's some kind of stellar manipulation device. If they point that thing at our sun..." Daewon didn't need the sentence finished. If the aliens had built a weapon capable of destroying stars, Earth had hours or days before becoming a lifeless rock floating in space. "Get me Captain Chan-Woo Kim," he ordered. "We need our fastest ship and our best crew. If we can't stop this weapon, humanity dies." Captain Chan-Woo Kim was preparing the Indomitable for what everyone knew would be a suicide mission when an unexpected message arrived. It came through quantum channels that shouldn't have existed, encoded in a way that hurt human minds to process directly. The message was from the Vorthax Seers. "The Star Eater must not be allowed to complete its cycle," the message said. It feeds energy to entities that exist in the quantum foam itself. If they awaken fully, no species in this galaxy will survive. You must stop it, not to save yourselves, but to save everyone. Dr. Ji-Hai Song, the Indomitable's chief science officer, studied the technical data included with the message. Captain, according to this, the Star Eater isn't destroying matter. It's converting it into a form of energy that exists in higher dimensions, and something out there is eating that energy. Chan Wu felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's environmental systems. What kind of something? The Vorthak call them the quantum devourers, Ji-Hai replied. Entities that exist in the spaces between realities. They've been sleeping for billions of years, but the energy from the Star Eater is waking them up. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just fighting a war against the Helix Federation. They were about to face something that could consume entire galaxies. But there was another revelation in the Vorthak message, one that would change everything humans thought they knew about their place in the universe. Captain, Ji-Hai said quietly, according to this data, human consciousness exists partially in quantum space. That's why we can manipulate quantum fields so easily, and why our thoughts disrupt alien computers. We're already connected to the same dimensions where these devourers live. Chan Wu stared at the data scrolling across his screen. Are you saying we're part alien? No, Ji-Hai replied. I'm saying we might be the only species capable of fighting them. Meanwhile, Dr. Yuna Park made a discovery that would prove Ji-Hai right. Deep in her laboratory, she had been working on a new type of quantum manipulator, one that interfaced directly with human neural patterns. When she tested it, something extraordinary happened. For just a moment, she could see beyond normal space-time. She could perceive the quantum foam that underlies all reality, the hidden dimensions where the fundamental forces of the universe originated. And in those dimensions, she saw things moving, ancient things, vast beyond comprehension, stirring. From eons of sleep, they were beautiful and terrible, existing as pure consciousness without physical form. They fed on the energy that held matter together, and they were hungry after their long sleep. But Yuna also saw something else. Human consciousness created patterns in quantum space that the devourers couldn't digest. Human thoughts were like poison to them, chaotic and unpredictable in ways that disrupted their perfect ordered existence. We're not just immune to them, she realized with growing excitement. We can hurt them. The race was on. The Star Eater was powering up to destroy Earth's sun, feeding energy to entities that could devour galaxies. The Helix Federation had no idea they were about to destroy not just humanity, but potentially all life in the known universe. And somewhere in the dark spaces between stars, Captain Chan Woo Kim and the crew of the Indomitable prepared for a mission that would either save reality itself or accelerate its destruction. The great darkening that the Vorthak had prophesied was beginning. The Star Eater was fully active now, a massive crystalline structure the size of a small moon orbiting the Helix homeworld. Admiral Daewon Park watched through long-range sensors as the device began to feed. Entire asteroids disappeared into its maw, converted into exotic energy that vanished into dimensions beyond normal space. Time to Earth's sun entering the targeting zone? He asked his tactical officer. 6 hours, sir, came the grim reply. 6 hours until the Star Eater could focus its power on Sol, until Earth's star would be consumed to feed things that should never have been awakened. 6 hours until humanity faced extinction. But Captain Chan Woo Kim and the crew of the Indomitable were already deep in Helix space, racing toward the Star Eater at speeds that pushed their quantum drive beyond safe limits. The ship groaned and sparked around them as reality bent under the strain. Captain, reported Dr. Ji-Hai Song from the science station, the quantum distortions around the Star Eater are affecting space-time itself. We're seeing temporal anomalies, gravity wells. That shouldn't exist, and something else. What kind of something else? Chan Wu asked, though he was afraid he already knew. Contact with entities existing in quantum foam, Ji-Hai replied quietly. The barriers between dimensions are breaking down. Things are coming through. On the main screen, space around the Star Eater looked wrong. Stars flickered like candles in a wind. Nebulae twisted into impossible shapes. And in the darkness between the stars, shadows moved that were darker than the void itself. The quantum devourers were waking up, Back on Earth, Dr. Una Park worked frantically in her laboratory, now expanded to fill an entire underground complex. Around her, teams of scientists and engineers worked on humanity's last hope, a quantum weapon designed not to destroy matter, but to poison the energy the devourers consumed. "The theory is sound," she explained to her research team. "Human consciousness creates chaotic patterns in quantum space. If we can amplify those patterns and inject them into the energy stream the Star Eater is feeding to the devourers, it should disrupt their ability to process it." Dr. Narration, her most brilliant student, looked up from her calculations. "But, Professor, the amplification required would need a human mind to interface directly with the quantum foam. The neural stress would be enormous. It would probably be fatal." Una nodded sadly. She had known this from the beginning. Someone would have to volunteer for a one-way trip into dimensions that human minds weren't designed to perceive. Someone would have to sacrifice themselves to save not just humanity, but potentially all life in the galaxy. "I'll do it," she said. Simply meanwhile, something unexpected was happening across the galaxy. As news of the Star Eater spread, other species began to understand what the Helix had unleashed. Ships from dozens of civilizations converged on the Helix core system, not to attack humanity, but to help them. The atmospheric collective arrived first, their gas-form vessels shimmering like living auroras as they took positions around the Star Eater. The tree folk of Verdania sent their massive bioships, living vessels that could repair themselves in battle. Even the Silicon Empire contributed, their computer-controlled fleets calculating optimal attack patterns. Admiral Taman watched in disbelief as former allies turned against him. "You're all making a terrible mistake," he broadcast to the assembled fleet. "The humans are the real threat. Their chaos will destroy the ordered universe we've built." It was Elder Kithara who answered him, her Vorthak vessel gliding through space like a silver ghost. "The ordered universe you built was always an illusion, Taman. Order without chaos is stagnation. Life without change is death. You fear the humans because they represent everything you've forgotten about what it means to truly live." As the diverse fleet approached the Star Eater, Captain Chan-Woo Kim found himself in command of the strangest battle group in galactic history. Human ships flew alongside alien vessels that had been trying to kill them just days before. Former enemies worked together with desperate efficiency, but they were too late to stop the Star Eater from beginning its harvest of Earth's sun. The device focused its power across 24 light-years of space, reaching out with tendrils of exotic energy to caress Sul's outer corona. Immediately, the star began to change. Its light flickered and dimmed as its matter was converted to energy and fed to things waiting in the quantum foam. On Earth, people around the world looked up to see their sun growing darker. Panic began to spread as temperatures started to drop, and plant life began to wither. But Dr. Una Park was ready. In her laboratory, she lay down on a quantum interface bed that her team had built around her research. Electrodes connected her brain to the most powerful quantum field generator humanity had ever created. Around her, colleagues and students watched with tears in their eyes. "Remember," she said to Dr. Narayun, "once I'm connected to the quantum foam, I won't be entirely human anymore. Don't let me stay connected too long, no matter what I might say. And if something goes wrong, if the devourers try to use me as a bridge to normal space, destroy the entire facility." Nari nodded, her hand hovering over the emergency shutdown controls. "Professor, there has to be another way," Una smiled sadly. "Sometimes the universe needs heroes who don't know they can't win. Today, I know exactly how impossible this is, but I'm going to do it anyway, because that's what humans do." She activated the interface. The sensation was indescribable. One moment, Una was lying on a bed in an underground laboratory. The next, she was floating in a space that existed between dimensions, where thoughts had weight and mathematics had color. The quantum foam stretched around her in all directions, a roiling sea of energy and possibility. This was the foundation of reality, the place where the fundamental forces were born. And moving through it like whales through an ocean were the quantum devourers. They were beautiful and horrible, existing as pure consciousness without physical form. Each one was vast, beyond comprehension, their thoughts spanning light years. They had been sleeping for billions of years, dreaming of the time when enough energy would wake them to feed again. The Star Eater's energy stream was like a river of light flowing toward them, and they consumed it eagerly. But when Yuna's chaotic, human consciousness touched the stream, everything changed. The ordered energy that the Devourers expected became a chaos storm of human thoughts and emotions. Memories of childhood, fears of the future, the taste of morning coffee, the sound of rain on windows, all of it poured into the energy stream like poison into a water supply. The nearest devourer recoiled in what might have been pain or confusion. Its perfect, crystalline thoughts couldn't process the random chaos of human experience. It was like trying to eat static electricity or digest the concept of purple. But Yuna realized she couldn't just disrupt the energy stream. She had to destroy the Star Eater itself. And to do that, she would have to go deeper into quantum space, into realms where human consciousness had never been designed to travel. Back in normal space, the battle around the Star Eater had become a nightmare of impossible physics. The device's reality-warping effects made conventional tactics useless. Ships found themselves firing at enemies that existed 5 minutes in the past. Energy beams curved through dimensions that had no names. Captain Chan-Woo Kim watched his instruments go insane as his ship entered the Star Eater's distortion field. Dr. Song, I need options. The quantum disruptions are too severe for conventional weapons, Ji-Hai reported. But if we could somehow synchronize our attack with whatever Dr. Park is doing on Earth, we might be able to create a resonance cascade. Chan-Woo nodded. It was a desperate plan, but desperation was becoming humanity's specialty. All ships, prepare for synchronized quantum bombardment. Target the Star Eater's core matrix. But as the fleet moved into attack position, something even more disturbing happened. Space around the Star Eater began to tear like fabric. Through the tears came things that shouldn't have been able to exist in normal reality, pieces of the quantum devourers, fragments of their vast consciousness, pressing through into physical space. Where they touched normal matter, it simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not converted to energy. It just stopped being real. Entire ships vanished without a trace as crew members who had existed for decades suddenly never existed at all. They're breaking through, Ji-Hai whispered in horror. The Devourers are forcing their way into our reality. In the quantum foam, Yuna felt the Devourers' rage as her chaotic human thoughts continued to poison their food. They began to focus their attention on her, their vast intelligences turning toward this tiny speck of consciousness that dared to interfere with their feeding. She felt their thoughts pressing against her mind like the weight of a collapsing star. Perfect mathematical concepts that human brains weren't designed to process flooded her consciousness. She began to understand things that would drive most people insane. The true shape of space-time, the reason why entropy existed, the purpose behind the fundamental forces. But she held on to her humanity. She thought about her brother commanding the human fleet. She thought about her students working in the laboratory below. She thought about Earth's children looking up at a dimming sun. And then she did something that no quantum devourer had ever experienced in billions of years of existence. The explosion of the Star Eater lit up the galaxy like a second sun. But this wasn't destruction in any normal sense. It was transformation. Where the massive device had existed, space itself began to change. The quantum foam that Dr. Yuna Park had poisoned with human consciousness spread outward like ripples in a cosmic pond. Captain Chan-Woo Kim watched from the bridge of the Indomitable as reality rewrote itself around them. Stars that had been dimming suddenly blazed with new light. Nebulae twisted into impossible spirals. And in the space where the Star Eater had been, something unprecedented appeared. A region where the laws of physics operated according to human imagination rather than mathematical certainty. Captain, reported Dr. Ji-Hai Song, her voice filled with wonder, the quantum distortions aren't random. They're following patterns that match human neural activity. It's as if space itself has been infected with consciousness. The quantum devourers were gone, not destroyed, but transformed. Their perfect crystalline thoughts had been so thoroughly chaotically scrambled by contact with human consciousness that they had become something entirely new, entities of pure creativity rather than pure order, where they had once existed. As vast, hungry intelligences, they now danced through the quantum foam like cosmic children, exploring the infinite possibilities that chaos and order could create together. The threat they had represented was over, but the universe they left behind was fundamentally changed. Admiral Daewon Park received reports from across the galaxy as the transformation spread. In the space around every major battle site from the war, reality had become fluid. Ships could travel faster than light not by bending space, but by convincing space to bend itself. Weapons worked not by following the laws of physics, but by believing strongly enough that those laws could be changed. It was beautiful and terrifying, and only human crews seemed able to navigate it safely. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving messages from the Galactic Council. They're requesting immediate assistance with what they're calling reality navigation issues." Daewon almost smiled. After years of dismissing humanity as primitive, the galaxy's most advanced civilizations were asking for help with their own space. The Helix Federation was in chaos. Admiral Taemin's perfect crystal structure had cracked completely when the Star Eater's destruction sent shockwaves of quantum chaos through Helix space. His ordered thoughts couldn't process what had happened. Entire Helix worlds found their crystal formations growing in wild, organic patterns that defied geometric logic. Other species were having similar problems. The Silicon Empire's computer minds crashed when they tried to calculate navigation routes through the changed space. The atmospheric collective found their gaseous forms becoming unstable in regions where gravity flowed like water. Only humans seemed able to function normally. In the new reality, their chaotic, adaptive minds treated the impossible physics as just another challenge to overcome through creativity and determination. 5 years after the Star Eater's destruction, the galaxy had settled into its new configuration. The regions of changed space were called dark zones, not because they were lightless, but because they were dark to traditional sensors and understanding. They could only be navigated by consciousness, by minds that could accept the impossible as merely improbable. Captain Soo-Min Lee, now an admiral, stood before the reformed Galactic Council in its new chamber on Nexus Prime. The chamber itself was built from materials that existed in the dark zones, substances that were solid when observed directly but became liquid when viewed through instruments. "The proposal before the Council is simple," she announced. "Humanity accepts the responsibility of patrolling and exploring the dark zones. In return, we ask for full membership in the Galactic Council, not as junior partners, but as equals." The Council members, many of them still struggling to understand the new reality they lived in, had little choice but to agree. Elder Kithara of the Vorthak spoke for many when she said, "You have proven that sometimes the galaxy needs species who can navigate the impossible." The vote was unanimous. Humanity had gone from galactic laughingstock to cosmic guardians in less than a decade. But the transformation had come at a cost. Dr. Una Park was gone, her consciousness scattered across the quantum foam in a sacrifice that had saved all life in the galaxy. Her students had built a memorial to her in soul, but they knew she wasn't really dead. She had become part of the fundamental structure of space itself. Sometimes, when human ships traveled through the deepest dark zones, their crews reported feeling a presence watching over them. A consciousness that was unmistakably human, unmistakably caring, guiding them through the chaos with the wisdom of someone who had seen beyond the boundaries of normal reality. Commander Jae-Sung Park, Dr. Una Park's nephew and the new head of the Human Deep Space Patrol, stood on the bridge of his ship, the Quantum Explorer, as it prepared to enter the largest dark zone yet discovered. His crew was entirely human, not because other species weren't welcome, but because they simply couldn't function in the chaotic space ahead. "All stations report ready," called out his science officer, Dr. Hai-Jin Kim, one of Dr. Una Park's former students. "Remember," Jae-Sung announced to his crew, "we're not just exploring space anymore. We're exploring possibility itself. Stay flexible, stay creative, and trust your instincts over your instruments." As the Quantum Explorer entered the dark zone, space around them began to shift and flow like liquid starlight. Ahead lay discoveries that would reshape humanity's understanding of the universe. The changed regions weren't empty voids. They were doorways to other realities. other versions of the galaxy where different choices had been made. In one reality, the Helix had never built the Star Eater, and humanity remained a minor species confined to Earth's solar system. In another, the quantum devourers had successfully consumed all matter in the galaxy, leaving behind only perfect mathematical patterns in empty space. But there were positive alternatives too, realities where humanity and alien species had found peace from the beginning, universes where the war had never happened because first contact had gone differently, dimensions where Dr. Unipark still lived, leading research teams in peaceful collaboration with alien scientists. The discovery of these alternate realities opened up possibilities that no one had imagined. Resources from uninhabited versions of worlds could help overpopulated realities. Knowledge gained in peaceful dimensions could be shared with warlike ones. The galaxy had become not just a single reality, but an infinite network of possibilities. And humanity, with their adaptive chaos and their ability to navigate the impossible, had become the guardians of that network. Captain Bo-Ram Lee, now in command of her own exploration vessel, led a mission to establish the first permanent base in a dark zone. The base existed in multiple realities simultaneously, its structures shifting between dimensions as needed. From there, human teams could explore the infinite possibilities that Dr. Unipark's sacrifice had opened up. The work was dangerous. Some crews never returned, lost in realities so different from their own that they couldn't find their way back. Others returned, changed, their minds expanded by contact with alternate versions of themselves. But they continued exploring, because that's what humans did. On Earth, children learned a new history in schools across 100 worlds. They studied the day their species had gone from interstellar joke to galactic legend. They learned about Dr. Unipark, who had sacrificed herself to save all life in the universe. They studied the battles where human chaos had defeated alien order. But most importantly, they learned that sometimes the greatest strength came from being underestimated. Sometimes the most powerful weapon was the willingness to do what everyone said was impossible. The Vorthak seers, their prophecies finally fulfilled, took on a new role as historians of the transformation. Elder Kithara, now ancient even by Vorthak standards, often spoke to human children about the early days of their species' rise. Your ancestors were dismissed as primitive, she would tell them. But primitiveness isn't about technology or knowledge. It's about the willingness to try new things, to make mistakes, to adapt and change. In that sense, I hope humanity never stops being primitive. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. Order without chaos was stagnation. Perfection without the possibility of change was death. The universe needed species like humanity, chaotic, unpredictable, willing to break the rules when the rules weren't working. As Commander Jae-Sung Park's ship pushed deeper into unexplored reality, he thought about his aunt's sacrifice and the strange path that had brought humanity to this point. They had started as a species that couldn't even agree on basic facts about their own planet. Now they were guardians of infinite realities, protectors of the cosmic balance between order and chaos. "Commander," called out Dr. Hyejin Kim, "we're detecting something ahead. It's not another alternate reality. It's something completely new." On the main screen, a structure appeared that defied description. It existed in all realities simultaneously, a constant point in an infinite sea of variables. As they approached, it became clear that this was some kind of nexus, a place where all possibilities converged. And waiting for them, there was a consciousness that felt familiar.